The holographic display flickered to life, casting an ethereal blue light across the United Nations General Assembly. Dr. Aria Chen gripped the edge of her lectern, her knuckles white, as the massive chamber fell into an expectant silence. This was humanity's moment, the first official diplomatic contact with the Galactic Council. 6 months of preparation had led to this singular moment. Thousands of linguists, diplomats, scientists, and cultural experts had worked around the clock to craft the perfect introduction. Humanity had compiled its most impressive achievements: breakthrough medical technologies, solutions to climate change, unprecedented global cooperation, and rapid space exploration advances. Voxaren materialized, quite literally, on the central platform. The crystalline being stood nearly 3 meters tall, its body a complex lattice of shifting, translucent geometric shapes that seemed to breathe with an internal light. When it spoke, the sound wasn't heard so much as experienced, a vibration that resonated directly in the minds of everyone present. Representatives of Earth, the being began, its voice a symphony of mathematical precision and cold detachment. We have reviewed your application for consideration. Aria felt a tremor of anticipation. Behind her, a delegation of the world's top leaders, from every continent, every major political system, held their collective breath. Voxaren continued, each word carefully calibrated for maximum psychological impact. Your civilization demonstrates a remarkable capacity for destruction. Your historical records show centuries of war, environmental devastation, social inequality. Your technological development, while impressive in some limited domains, reveals a fundamental lack of systemic wisdom. The chamber remained silent, but Aria caught something, a micro-expression, a fleeting moment of something other than pure condescension in Voxaren's crystalline features. Fear, concern, something deeper than the rehearsed dismissal. Humanity lacks the fundamental sophistication to comprehend galactic diplomacy, Voxaren declared. You are children playing at being adults. The words landed like physical blows. Live broadcasts captured the moment in every language, on every continent, in every home and public space. Billions watched as humanity's most carefully prepared diplomatic mission was reduced to a public humiliation. What Voxaren didn't know, what no one in that moment recognized, was how profoundly they had misunderstood human nature. In Tokyo, a young programmer named Hiroshi Nakamura watched the broadcast, his fingers already dancing across multiple holographic interfaces. In Lagos, Dr. Kwame Okonkwo, head of the African Space Consortium, began making encrypted communications to a network of global contacts. In Sao Paulo, a team of researchers started analyzing every nuance of the transmission. Aria Chen remained perfectly still, her eyes locked on Voxaren. Something was off. The dismissal was too perfect, too choreographed. Her years of xenolinguistic research had trained her to read between the lines of communication, to understand the subtle tells that existed beyond words. A slight fracture in the crystalline being's form, a microsecond of hesitation, the precise mathematical rhythm of its speech interrupted by the briefest of anomalies. Something was wrong, and humanity was about to find out exactly what. As Voxaren completed its dismissal and began to dematerialize, Aria made a decision. She would not accept this. No one would. This was not an ending. This was a beginning. The broadcast ended. The world held its breath. And in that moment of global silence, the seeds of revolution were already taking root. 48 hours after the humiliation, Marcus Rodriguez stared at the conspiracy wall in his secure basement lab, a labyrinth of digital screens and physical documents connected by a web of crimson threads. He looked like a man possessed, which in many ways he was. The public had two primary reactions to the Galactic Council's dismissal. The first was shock. The second was rage. Social media erupted in a global phenomenon that defied traditional communication channels. The hashtag "We're Not Children" trended across every platform, in every language. Universities organized emergency symposiums. Government agencies that had previously been rivals now found themselves in unexpected collaboration. Marcus knew he was uniquely positioned to transform this moment of collective humiliation into something more dangerous. His background was itself a statement against categorization. A mixed-race strategist who had been systematically overlooked by traditional diplomatic channels, only to prove himself repeatedly in crisis scenarios. His encrypted communication pinged. Dr. Kamala Patel. "I found something," her message read. No elaborate greeting, no professional niceties. Just raw, concentrated information. The attached files were fragments of communication intercepts, digital breadcrumbs that suggested the Galactic Council's rejection wasn't just about humanity. It was about maintaining a specific galactic power structure. Patel had discovered encrypted communication channels that predated human technological understanding. These weren't just communications. They were a complex network of suppression, designed to keep emerging civilizations from gaining true galactic influence. In another part of the world, Captain Sarah Chen was mobilizing her own network. Military strategists, technological experts, and diplomatic mavens who had been systematically marginalized were now finding each other through increasingly sophisticated communication channels. "They thought we were children," Chen muttered, reviewing tactical simulations. "They have no idea what children are capable of when they're underestimated." The movement wasn't just a reaction. It was a calculated, multi-layered response that was forming faster than any traditional diplomatic mechanism could track. Universities became coordination centers. Research labs that had previously competed now shared resources. Tech companies that had guarded their innovations now open-sourced critical technologies. The entire human infrastructure was reorganizing itself with a speed and fluidity that would have been impossible just months earlier. Marcus discovered the first piece of truly shocking evidence buried in a subroutine of an old communication protocol. The Galactic Council had a history, a long, brutal history of preventing emerging civilizations from gaining technological and diplomatic autonomy. Species that had shown potential for rapid advancement had been systematically marginalized, their communications monitored, their technological developments subtly sabotaged. Humanity wasn't just being rejected, they were being contained. The basement lab hummed with activity. Holographic displays showed real-time global communication networks, tracking the emergence of what was quickly becoming more than just a movement. It was a coordinated global response that defied traditional understanding of diplomacy, technology, and collective action. Marcus looked at the wall of information, a smile slowly spreading across his face. The Galactic Council had made a fundamental mistake. They had treated humanity as a monolithic, predictable entity. They were about to learn the true meaning of human adaptability. A notification flashed. Another piece of the puzzle had just been decoded, and with it, the first real strategy for not just responding to the Galactic Council, but fundamentally challenging its entire existence. The quantum laboratory looked nothing like a traditional research facility. Suspended between three massive gravitational stabilizers, the primary research platform seemed to exist in multiple states simultaneously, a physical manifestation of quantum uncertainty. Dr. Kamala Patel stood at the center, her augmented neural interface casting a soft blue glow around her head. 36 hours of continuous work had led to this moment. Her team, a diverse group of researchers from 17 different countries, watched with a mixture of exhaustion and electric anticipation. "Quantum entanglement isn't just a communication method," Patel announced, her voice cutting through the ambient hum of advanced machinery. "It's a language we've been trying to speak without understanding the grammar." The breakthrough had come from an unexpected intersection. By combining advanced machine learning algorithms, quantum computing principles, and a revolutionary approach to interdimensional signal processing, Patel's team had discovered something unprecedented. A communication method that didn't just bypass existing galactic communication networks. It fundamentally rewrote the rules of how information could be transmitted. The first test came unexpectedly. As the primary quantum array powered up, something impossible happened. Encrypted communication channels, channels that weren't supposed to exist, began to resolve themselves on the laboratory's primary display. "My God," whispered Dr. Elena Rodriguez, the team's xenolinguistic expert. "We're not just intercepting. We're understanding." The communication network they discovered was a complex, multidimensional web of information. It wasn't a simple communication channel. It was a living, breathing ecosystem of data that had been carefully hidden from emerging civilizations. Fragments of suppressed histories began to emerge, species that had been deemed non-viable by the Galactic Council, technological developments that had been systematically erased, an entire hidden layer of galactic history that had been meticulously controlled. But the truly revolutionary aspect wasn't just the discovery. It was the team's ability to not just intercept, but to generate their own quantum communication signatures. They've been using a communication method that assumes all emerging civilizations will approach information linearly, Paddle explained to the team. "We're proving that assumption wrong." The first real-world test came with unexpected drama. A quantum pulse, carefully encoded, was sent through the newly discovered communication channels. Within moments, they received a response, not from any known galactic entity, but from a series of coordinates that shouldn't technically exist. Marcus Rodriguez burst into the laboratory, his usual carefully maintained composure completely shattered. "The first replies are coming in," he said, holding a quantum-encrypted tablet. "And they're not what anyone expected." Hidden communication networks began lighting up. Species that had been considered extinct, civilizations that had been reported as resolved, a clinical galactic euphemism for systematically eliminated, were suddenly showing signs of active communication. The Galactic Council's carefully maintained information firewall was crumbling. Dr. Petal looked at her team, a dangerous glint in her eye. "They thought we were children," she said quietly. "They have no idea what we're capable of." The quantum array continued to pulse, each transmission a potential revolution. Humanity had just discovered that the universe was far more complex and far more interesting than anyone had been allowed to know. And they were just getting started. The communication chamber looked like nothing a diplomatic negotiation had ever seen before. Holographic projections danced with quantum-encoded signals, creating a three-dimensional space that defied traditional understanding of distance and presence. Ambassador Kwame Okonkwo adjusted the quantum resonance translator, a device that was equal parts scientific marvel and diplomatic miracle. The first contact was delicate, unpredictable, and absolutely critical. The Krelvor appeared first, not as a physical being, but as a shimmering construct of pure energy. They had been reported extinct for over 3 centuries, a convenient narrative carefully maintained by the Galactic Council. "We have watched," the energy construct communicated, its essence flickering between multiple wavelengths of communication. "Humanity is unexpected." Beside Okonkwo, Captain Sarah Chen monitored a series of quantum-encrypted security protocols. This wasn't just a diplomatic meeting. It was a potential revolution. The Remnant Collective materialized next, or rather, their representatives did. They were survivors, fragments of civilizations systematically eliminated by the Galactic Council. Each delegate bore the marks of their species near extinction: cybernetic augmentations, genetic modifications, quantum-entangled consciousness patterns that allowed them to exist beyond traditional biological limitations. "Your technology," said a delegate from the Remnant Collective, her voice a complex harmonic that seemed to exist in multiple linguistic frequencies simultaneously. "It is not just a communication method. It is a key. A key to what remained unspoken." The negotiations were complex, multi-layered. Each species brought centuries of trauma, decades of hidden resistance, and a burning desire for autonomy. Humanity wasn't just offering an alliance. They were offering a fundamental reimagining of galactic power structures. Marcus Rodriguez watched from a secondary monitoring station, analyzing every microscopic interaction. The quantum communication arrays picked up far more than simple verbal exchanges. They captured emotional resonances, quantum-level intent, the very fabric of interspecies communication. The Galactic Council maintained control through isolation. Rodriguez noted, his analysis appearing as real-time holographic annotations. By preventing different species from communicating, they could control the narrative. The Krelvor's energy construct pulsed with what could only be described as anticipation. We have existed in quantum suspension, watching, waiting. Your species does not understand how rare true collective action is. Unexpected allies began to emerge, a rebel faction from within the Zarn hierarchical system. Quantum archived consciousness from a species believed to have been completely eliminated. Technological refugees who had been systematically suppressed. Each new contact was a quantum entanglement of possibility. Captain Chen noticed something first. The communication patterns were evolving, not just between humanity and these species, but between the species themselves. They were learning, adapting, creating new communication protocols in real time. "This is more than an alliance," she whispered to Okonkwo. "This is the beginning of something entirely new." The Remnant Collective's lead delegate, a being that seemed to be simultaneously mechanical, biological, and quantum, made their intent clear. "We do not seek revenge. We seek transformation." As the first truly multi-species, quantum-enabled diplomatic meeting continued, one thing became abundantly clear. The Galactic Council had no idea what was coming. Humanity had not just found allies. They had discovered the beginnings of a galactic revolution. The first strike came without warning. Global communication networks collapsed simultaneously. Power grids in 13 major cities flickered and died. Financial systems became a labyrinth of corrupted data and phantom transactions. Dr. Elena Rodriguez watched the initial attacks unfold from a secure quantum-shielded facility beneath the Andes Mountains. Her fingers danced across holographic interfaces, tracing the attack vectors with a precision that was equal parts scientific analysis and pure survival instinct. "This isn't a traditional cyber attack," she muttered to the team of global network defenders. "This is surgical, targeted, designed to create maximum psychological disruption." The Galactic Council's response was swift and multifaceted. It wasn't just a technological assault. It was a comprehensive attempt to dismember humanity's emerging galactic alliance before it could fully form. In Tokyo, Hiroshi Nakamura led a team of quantum network defenders. What had started as a coordinated global tech response was now a frontline defense against an enemy that understood information as a weapon far beyond traditional understanding. "They're not just attacking our systems," Nakamura reported to the global coordination team. "They're trying to attack our belief in ourselves." Marcus Rodriguez received the first encrypted communication from their alien allies. The Remnant Collective had anticipated this moment. Quantum-encrypted defensive protocols began to activate across multiple planetary systems, creating a network of resistance that the Galactic Council hadn't predicted. The psychological warfare was equally sophisticated. Targeted disinformation campaigns began to emerge. Historical records were subtly manipulated. Communication channels became minefields of carefully crafted narratives designed to create doubt, fear, and division. Captain Sarah Chen understood the true nature of the assault. This was an attack designed to break humanity's newfound unity, to prove the Galactic Council's original dismissal correct. "They want us to fracture," Chen explained during an emergency global strategy session. "Every division we create, every moment of internal conflict, is a victory for them." But humanity had changed. The global response was unlike anything in historical records. Tech companies that had been bitter rivals now shared defensive protocols. Government agencies that had previously guarded information jealously now created open-source defense networks. The quantum communication breakthrough provided something unexpected, a method of communication that was inherently resistant to traditional disinformation tactics. Dr. Kamala Patel's team discovered the first true weakness in the Galactic Council's assault. The attack vectors, for all their sophistication, followed a predictable quantum signature. Each attack left a trace, a quantum fingerprint that could be not just detected, but potentially weaponized. They're fighting a war with rules we didn't agree to, Patil announced, her voice cutting through the tension of the Global Defense Center. And we're about to rewrite those rules. The most devastating counterattack came from an unexpected source. The quantum communication network that humanity had developed began to function as more than just a communication tool. It became a collective defense mechanism. Alien allies began to contribute. The Krell-Vor, existing as pure energy, could interact with information systems in ways no biological entity could comprehend. The Remnant Collective introduced defensive algorithms that had been developed through centuries of survival. What the Galactic Council had intended as a crushing blow became something else entirely, a demonstration of humanity's true potential. As communication networks began to stabilize, as defensive systems came online, one thing became abundantly clear. This was no longer just a defensive action. This was the beginning of a comprehensive counteroffensive. The Galactic Council had made a fundamental mistake. They had attacked a species that was at its most dangerous when challenged. The archive chamber was unlike anything in human historical records. Suspended in a quantum-stabilized data matrix, millions of suppressed historical documents began to materialize. Dr. Arya Chen stood at the epicenter of what would become known as the Great Revelation, her quantum-interfaced neural link parsing information at speeds that would have been impossible mere months earlier. It's not just documentation, she whispered to Marcus Rodriguez, who was monitoring the global information release. It's a systematic record of galactic oppression. The documents revealed a chilling truth. The Galactic Council wasn't a diplomatic body, it was a control mechanism. Species after species had been systematically marginalized, their technological developments suppressed, their cultural narratives rewritten. The Krell-Vor provided critical decryption algorithms. The Remnant Collective contributed historical context. What emerged was a comprehensive map of galactic manipulation that stretched back thousands of standard years. Worlds that had been reported as voluntarily integrated were actually conquered. Technological breakthroughs that could have transformed entire civilizations had been strategically buried. Communication channels had been carefully controlled to prevent any meaningful cross-species collaboration. Captain Sarah Chen coordinated the information release. It wasn't just about exposure. It was a carefully planned psychological operation designed to dismantle the Galactic Council's legitimacy. We're not just revealing information, Chen explained during a strategy briefing. We're providing a narrative that every marginalized species can recognize. The psychological warfare was precise. Each revelation was accompanied by quantum-verified documentation, making denial impossible. The Galactic Council's communication channels began to fracture under the weight of their own historical lies. Dr. Kamala Patel's team had developed something revolutionary, a quantum communication protocol that could simultaneously translate, verify, and distribute information across multiple species communication spectrums. What had started as a communication technology was now a weapon of systemic destruction. Unexpected allies began to emerge. Internal factions within the Galactic Council started to splinter. Some saw the revelations as an opportunity for reform. Others prepared for a more desperate resistance. The most shocking revelations came from the most unexpected sources. The Zarn hierarchical system, previously believed to be a staunch supporter of the Galactic Council, began to provide internal documentation that exposed deep-seated corruption. They thought isolation was their strength. Marcus Rodriguez analyzed, tracking the cascading information collapse. They never understood that connection is humanity's true power. The information release was strategically timed. Multiple communication channels were activated simultaneously. What had been hidden was now exposed, not just to humanity, but to every species that had been systematically suppressed. Quantum-encrypted testimonies began to flood communication networks. Species that had been reported as extinct shared their true histories. Technological developments that had been buried for centuries suddenly found light. Dr. Elena Rodriguez discovered something even more profound. The suppression wasn't just political, it was fundamentally about preventing collective evolution. Every time a species showed potential for genuine galactic collaboration, they were systematically isolated or eliminated. "This isn't just a political system," she reported during a global briefing. "This is a mechanism designed to prevent collective advancement." The Remnant Collective's representative, a being that existed simultaneously as biological and quantum information, provided a chilling perspective. "For millennia, they convinced us that our individual failures were our own. Now we understand. The system was designed for us to fail." As the revelations continued, something unprecedented happened. The very communication networks that the Galactic Council had used for control began to transform. Species that had been isolated for centuries began to connect, to share, to understand their common experiences. What had started as a human initiative was becoming a genuine galactic movement. The Galactic Council had made a fatal mistake. They had tried to control a story, and humanity had just rewritten the entire narrative. The Convergence Chamber defied every traditional concept of diplomatic space. Suspended in a quantum-stabilized nexus point, representatives from over 40 previously isolated civilizations gathered in a space that was simultaneously physical and digital, real and theoretical. Ambassador Kwame Okonkwo stood at the epicenter, a living bridge between humanity's determination and the collective hope of marginalized species. The chamber itself was a testament to the technological breakthrough, a space where communication transcended language, biology, and traditional dimensional constraints. Voxaren, the crystalline being who had initially dismissed humanity, materialized in a position of unexpected vulnerability. The once imposing representative of the Galactic Council now appeared diminished, its geometric form flickering with uncertainty. "You have violated every established protocol," Voxaren attempted, its communication a last-ditch effort at maintaining historical authority. Dr. Aria Chen stepped forward, her quantum interface translation matrix allowing her to communicate with a precision that went beyond words. Protocols designed to suppress. Protocols created to prevent collective advancement. The chamber was more than a negotiation. It was a public trial of an entire system of galactic governance. The Remnant Collective's representatives, beings that existed in states between biological and quantum consciousness, began to share synchronized testimonies. Centuries of suppressed histories cascaded through the communication matrix. Each story was a weapon more powerful than any traditional armament. Marcus Rodriguez managed the informational flow, ensuring that every revelation was contextualized, verified, and strategically presented. This wasn't just about exposure. It was about creating a comprehensive narrative of systemic failure. Captain Sarah Chen monitored the diplomatic and potential military implications. The chamber was surrounded by a quantum defensive network, a collaborative shield created by the allied species. Any attempt at traditional intimidation would be immediately neutralized. The most unexpected testimonies came from within the Galactic Council's own structures. Internal factions, long suppressed, began to reveal the true mechanisms of control. It wasn't just external species that had been manipulated. The Council's own internal systems were a labyrinth of oppression. Dr. Kamala Patel's breakthrough communication technology played a crucial role. The quantum communication matrix allowed for a level of transparency that was unprecedented. Emotional states, historical contexts, and underlying motivations became simultaneously visible. "This is not revenge," Okonkwo declared, his voice resonating through multiple communication spectrums. "This is transformation." The Zarn hierarchical system, previously believed to be the most rigid supporters of the existing order, began to fracture. Their representatives revealed internal documents showing decades of manufactured conflicts, systematically preventing species from achieving true collaborative potential. Hiroshi Nakamura, managing the technological infrastructure, noticed something extraordinary. The very communication systems were evolving in real time. What had started as a human-developed technology was becoming a collective creation, shaped by the contributions of multiple species. Voxaren's final attempt at resistance became its ultimate moment of defeat. You cannot understand the complexity of galactic governance, the being attempted. Dr. Elena Rodriguez responded with a precision that cut through every historical pretense. Complexity is not a justification for oppression. It is an invitation to collective problem-solving. The chamber became more than a diplomatic meeting. It was a moment of collective awakening. Species that had been isolated for millennia began to recognize their shared experiences. The psychological impact was immediate and profound. What the Galactic Council had feared most was happening. True, unfiltered communication. As the negotiations continued, it became clear that this was no longer about humanity challenging the existing system. This was about creating an entirely new paradigm of galactic interaction. The Galactic Council had believed they could control the narrative. Instead, they had unleashed a revolution of connection. And humanity had been the unexpected catalyst. 6 months after the convergence, the collaborative nexus hung in space, not as a traditional space station, but as a living, evolving quantum network that defied every previous concept of governance. Dr. Arya Chen stood at its conceptual center, watching the representations of 43 different civilizations interact in ways that would have been impossible mere months earlier. This was more than a new galactic governing body. This was a fundamental reimagining of collective existence. Marcus Rodriguez approached, his quantum interfaced communication matrix revealing the intricate networks of ongoing negotiations, collaborative research, and shared evolutionary paths. "We're not just creating a council," he said quietly. "We're creating a living system of mutual advancement." The transformation had been more profound than anyone could have anticipated. The quantum communication technology developed by humanity had become a universal translation method that went beyond language, capturing emotional nuance, cultural context, and collective intent in ways no previous communication system could achieve. Dr. Kamala Patel's team had discovered something extraordinary. The communication network was evolving. It wasn't just a tool, it was becoming a collective consciousness, the living system of shared knowledge and mutual understanding. Captain Sarah Chen monitored the defensive networks, but these were no longer traditional military structures. They were collaborative protection systems, where each species contributed its unique evolutionary adaptations to create a comprehensive, dynamic defense mechanism. The first truly collaborative scientific initiative was already underway. Species that had been isolated for millennia were now sharing technological developments, medical breakthroughs, and philosophical insights. What had once been seen as differences were now recognized as complementary evolutionary paths. Ambassador Kwame Okonkwo presented the first comprehensive report on the new governance model. It wasn't a hierarchical system, but a dynamic network of mutual consultation and collective problem-solving. Each civilization contributed its unique perspective, with decision-making processes that prioritized collective advancement over individual power. Vox Eren, the being that had initially dismissed humanity, now served as a historical consultant, providing context about previous galactic interactions. The transformation was complete. What had once been a tool of oppression was now a source of collective insight. Hiroshi Nakamura's team had developed the underlying technological infrastructure, a quantum network that was simultaneously secure and completely transparent. Every decision, every communication could be traced, understood, and collectively evaluated. The remnant collective's representatives played a crucial role in establishing restorative protocols. Species that had been systematically oppressed were provided paths for cultural reconstruction, technological reintegration, and collective healing. Dr. Elena Rodriguez discovered something even more profound. The communication network was revealing deeper truths about collective consciousness. Each species was not just sharing information. They were learning to understand each other's fundamental modes of experiencing reality. "We're not just creating a new governance system," Rodriguez explained during a global briefing. "We're developing a new way of understanding existence itself." The most unexpected outcome was the nature of conflict resolution. Traditional diplomatic methods gave way to quantum-enabled empathy protocols. Disagreements became opportunities for collective problem-solving. with communication technologies that could parse emotional nuance, historical context, and potential collaborative solutions. As the first year of the collaborative nexus concluded, humanity's role became clear. They hadn't just challenged a system, they had provided a blueprint for a fundamentally different approach to collective existence. The species that had once been dismissed as children had become the architects of a new galactic paradigm. Marcus Rodriguez looked out at the quantum-networked representation of dozens of civilizations, their interactions creating patterns of unprecedented complexity and beauty. What had started as a response to rejection had become something far more significant. A living demonstration of what becomes possible when connection triumphs over control. Humanity had not just been invited to the galactic table. They had reimagined the entire concept of the table itself.